There's a brand new reason to host with Siteground, and it's a good one. Hey, it's Ozzy here from theycallmehost.com, where I talk about the tools that I'm using to generate income online as a solopreneur. And in this channel, I share tutorials and all the great tools that I find along the way. So if any of this is helpful to you in any way, then please subscribe and I'll keep you posted. Okay, in this quick video, I want to touch on 2 points. The first one is a great bit of news. Siteground has moved to the Google Cloud platform. I'm very excited about this, and I'll share with you just why in a moment. Now, the second point is that if you are going to sign up with Siteground as your host for your blog or your website, then I'm going to tell you which plan to avoid, which hosting plan to avoid. Okay, so the first thing is Google Cloud platform. Okay, if you've watched my hosting video, then you'll know that I have a 2-step plan for launching a blog or a website. I always start small. I choose Siteground as my first step. And then when I hit a certain number of page views per month that warrant a increase in resources, I then switch hosts. And step 2, I normally recommend a host like Kinsta. And the reason I recommend Kinsta is because they are hosted on the Google Cloud platform and they are extremely fast. Well, now Siteground has moved to the Google Cloud platform, so this evens out the playing field in a way. Now, going forwards in future, what I will be doing when I hit those page views that require that increase in resources, I'll be taking a close look at Siteground's bigger plans and comparing the resources given and the price points versus Kinsta. And I may just stay with Siteground and just see how that pans out. Okay, but for step 1, for anybody on step 1, with a smaller website or a smaller blog, the fact that you're on the Google Cloud doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be blisteringly fast. Let's just get one thing clear. If you're on a tiny plan with Siteground, then yes, it's going to be great that you're going to be hosted on the Google Cloud, but you only have a limited number of resources. So if you have a tsunami of visitors, you only have so many resources to be able to serve those pages. So your site might still be a bit slower than it would be otherwise, okay? But there are a lot of benefits to being hosted on the Google Cloud platform, even if you only have a small plan, such as uptime. Uptime is a big thing, and Google's network doesn't go down very often. So it's a lot better than being hosted on a bare metal server data center or traditional data center. So your uptime should be fantastic. Okay, hopefully you just won't have any downtime, which is great. You don't want people to arrive at your blog and it not be accessible. Okay, so on this page here, you can see the Siteground blog where they talk about their move to the Google Cloud. And one of the first things that they talk about is the fact that they will be able to have multiple locations and they will keep adding these. So for example, if you live in Germany and your blog is only applicable to German people or people who live in Germany, then you may want to be hosted in Germany. So you could host with Siteground, be on the Google Cloud platform and choose a location around Germany. Okay, so that's how that works. Now, other advantages of Google Cloud, as you can see here, is there will be easier scaling and resource management. So when you do hit those page views that warrant an increase in resources, adding CPU and RAM is actually very easy in this environment. Okay, now another thing they talk about is distributed storage for high data redundancy, which is posh speak for what I just mentioned about uptime. You're going to have great uptime. Okay, now state-of-the-art network for faster sites. Ironically, when you look at any web host, they always have state-of-the-art equipment. You always see that sentence. Okay, let's have a look. Data center locations. Okay, and the last thing worth mentioning is this thing here about renewable energy. Being hosted on the Google Cloud platform means that they're a lot more eco-friendly than being on a traditional data center. Okay, so naturally, I still recommend Siteground as that first step. In future, possibly it might also be the second step of the plan. But as a first step, you're going to benefit greatly from the fact that it's on a very fast network that has great uptime. Now, point 2 was what plan to avoid. Okay, so by the way, I'll put a link to this page in the description below this video. This page, as I mentioned, is the blog post on the Siteground website where they talk in detail about everything about moving to the Google Cloud. Okay, so I'll leave that in the description. Now, the second point, as I said, is what plan to avoid. So if I go to hosting and WordPress hosting, you'll notice that Siteground have 3 plans. These are the 3 plans they've had for a long time. And here you can see them: Startup, Grow Big, and Go Geek. Now, even though I say start small with any blog, especially with a new blog, that doesn't necessarily mean start super cheap. So the plan I avoid is the startup. And the reason for that is that the Grow Big is the first plan in the 3-tier plan that offers you on-demand backup copies. And this is something that I use very often. I used to host a lot of websites for clients, and every time I had to do some work on them, this is something that I would always rely on. I would very quickly create a backup and then start working on the website. On the off chance that you screw something up and everything goes pear-shaped, you can very quickly restore that copy, and I think that's priceless. Okay, so for anybody who cares about their blog, this is something that you need to have in place. And you don't get that with the small plan, which is the startup plan. So Grow Big or Go Geek. If you're starting out and you have 0 traffic, then just go for the Grow Big. Now, talking of backups, I don't rely on any one single host for my backups. And that's for the simple reason that if your host goes down, then your website goes down. But if you're hosting your backups with the same host, then they are on the same server, which means that you lose access to your backups. So you can't even, in a disaster scenario, change host and take your most recent backup and reinstall your website somewhere else because they're on the server that went down. Okay, so for this, I use a different tool, and I talk about that tool on the video that you see on your screen right now. So click it and I'll see you there.